Hello, my name is Alejandro. I'm on behalf of the Nerdy Basement. I am here with Paco Correa, the director of the podcast Seis Minutos.
Yes.
How are you today?
Everything good. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. I have a couple questions. So what inspired this story and what sparked the idea to translate this podcast series, originally called 6 Minutes, into Seis Minutos into the Spanish-speaking language?
Well, actually, the creators of the show, which is Gen-Z Media, they contacted me a year and a half ago, and they told me, listen, we have this podcast, it's wonderful. We would like you to take a look at it to see if it actually could be adapted into Spanish. That's what I do for a living. I actually adapt all kind of advertising and production into Spanish for Latino audiences. So I said, sure, let's take a look. I saw it. I totally got hooked on it. We started to talk. And then after that, we got in contact with a dubbing house, which is the name is blah, blah, blah in El Salvador. And we started to talk. And we started to translate every single episode, 204 in total. And here we are today.
Awesome. Is it the first podcast that you translate?
The first podcast that big, yes, okay. It is the first one. I mean, this is actually, usually a podcast is one or two people talking and it's fine. This is actually a cast of characters. It's like 30 people just talking with sound effects, with a lot of stuff. It's almost like a soap opera in a podcast format. So yeah.
Okay. So then, since you translated it, talk to us about the translation process. Are there any creative liberties they were given, or did you stay pretty faithful to the adaptation of the original?
We actually tried to keep as faithful as possible to the original, keeping in mind that it is in a totally different language. That different language, which is Spanish, is actually going to be reaching people in 23 or 24 countries, all Latin America, Spain, the US Hispanic market. So we actually have to keep in mind that to use the most neutral Spanish possible. So people in Mexico and Argentina and in the Caribbean and in Spain would understand every single word that we are actually saying. Because that some words in one place can mean one thing and the other place can mean something totally different.
Of course. That's actually very, very funny you say that, because that's something, as we are Latino speaking creators. So it's interesting because, like, for example, Puerto Rico, we do have certain slang that it wouldn't translate, say, in Mexico. So absolutely. Some people, it happens both ways, because some people actually embrace when something is shot, let's say, in Salvador. And then they go into the intricacies of the culture and all that, and then all along with that goes the slang and everything like that. But sometimes when you want to appeal to a very massive audience, you kind of have to like distill to the most basic Spanish that everyone can universally understand. So
and
it's very
still,
interesting.
and it's still not only that, but it also has to keep the flair. It still have to keep we have to keep as faithful as possible to the original. Granted, some things are totally lost in translation.
Yeah.
So we have to adapt it, but in those cases, which actually were minimal, we were in constant contact with the creators, and we told them, this is the problem, this is the solution. What do you think? Yeah, why not? It works.
Yeah.
So it was basically blessed.
Awesome. So talk to me about the process of creating this podcast show, especially since it's so big, it's 30 cast of characters. What are the benefits it might have over a TV show?
Well, the benefit of the TV show is almost like radio. Radio is called the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
As long as you have good voices and a good bank of music and sound effects, you could actually be in outer space. Nobody would care because you're listening to it. What I'm thinking might be something different what you're thinking, but we are still thinking. It's not like if you actually have a TV show, if it happens to be in outer space, if it has to be in the Pacific or something, you need to have those things. In radio and in the podcast, you don't need that. Therefore, you can actually spend the funds and spend everything else just making it as good as possible. So that's the advantage, the first advantage. Second of all, the these episodes are actually 6 minutes long, each one. Therefore, for the audience, which is actually kids, they usually have a retentive like of a fly. It's just like, oh, cool. Okay, next.
Yeah.
So it's actually very good to keep them in there, and we always finish every episode in a cliffhanger, so they will want to listen to the next one.
Yeah. So in talking about the 6-minute format, which was another question I had, let's jump into that. Do you think it's a new wave of consuming media, like with the rise of TikTok, with the rise of all these type of like reels and very short content? Do you think it fits into that mold?
Absolutely, because then again, let's talk about the audience. The audience is kids, millennials, stuff like that, that basically they want instant gratification, and they want something in, out, get out. That's it.
Yeah.
And TikTok is just that. You can do that, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes, maybe, and then out and next to the next thing. In the case of 6 minutes, each episode is 6 minutes. You have 204 episodes. We're gonna be doing this for almost 2 years, twice a week, but people can actually keep coming back. And if you want to listen more, then you keep listening and sit down at once and keep watching.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I listened to the ones in English, because the Spanish one hasn't. I think that the Spanish was released tomorrow, September 9th.
The 9th.
Exactly. Yes. So, but I was listening to the original one to have some base of what the story is. But it's interesting because even though it's cut up in 6 minutes chunks, it's essentially you kind of cut up like a 20-minute episode into 6 minutes sequences, because it has like it continues one through the other in a very seamless through line. So you can just, like you said, you can sit down and listen to like 10 in a sitting, or you can just listen to them sporadically whenever you have a chance.
You got at your own pace, whatever you want. You have the time, you listen to more. You don't have the time, on the go. Keep going.
How's the process in terms of the editing? Do you sit down with I guess it would be more of a sound designer and the editor, kind of like piecing together the sound effects and the music where it fits the tone and the mood?
Well, in the case of ours, since ours was an adaptation, the original team on Gen-Z Media, they gave us what they call the master in English. It has one channel has the voices, one channel has the voice, the sound effects, etc. We literally sat down with the script, translated word by word, adapted everything, and then we sat to make sure that everything that was being said, it would actually fit onto those crevices. Yeah. So it would keep the sound effects when they were supposed to happen and the music when it was supposed to happen. So basically, it is literally one exactly on top of the other.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So do you think that for the future of media consumption, will people gravitate towards, basically, we're going full circle, because like that was back in the day, War of the World, stuff like that. That's the thing that people used to consume. Exactly. Yeah. So you think, are we going to go back to full circle mode in where people start listening to these type of podcast shows, and they might be on the level of, like, say, a Stranger Things and stuff like that?
I think so. As you said, it's actually full circle. People call it a podcast. For me, it's actually just a radio soap opera. The ones that my grandmother used to listen to. Yeah, it's literally the same thing. It is not the same audience. The audience used to be older women and older men in those days. Now it's actually millennials. It's actually kids. It's actually kids, but the parents might be listening to it and they will be interested in listening to it because it's actually fun. It's like you said, Stranger Things. It's something very, that kind of things. If it's going to keep going, very likely. Gen-Z Media, they have this is not the only property they have many other properties in English. And I think that this is going to be opening the door for new experiments with new properties, and not only in Spanish. I already had an interview with someone that says, oh, we could actually we should do this for Portuguese. I said, yeah, it's why not? Yeah.
Awesome. So do you think it has like it has great capabilities in terms of educating kids, because it's just geared towards kids? Do you think it has some educational properties to it too?
Absolutely. For example, the English version, I'm talking about the English version right now, those have been actually used in thousands of schools through the US, teaching two things: teaching kids, American kids, to listen, to hear it, and kids who are actually using English as a second language to listen to it better than reading it. They, of course, have a companion. Many schools have the companion of the scripts that you can actually read what they're saying. So it is definitely educational. In Spanish, it is the plan to start putting those in the same schools as well. For kids who know Spanish, they will not forget it, which tends to happen.
Yeah.
And the kids who are actually trying to learn Spanish as a second language can actually follow it through. Much easier than just reading a book.
That's really cool. Yeah, I remember when I was younger, we used to have like audiobooks that we would listen to and stuff like that, either English or Spanish. So it's really cool. Like this is like the next step of that. And it's because if it's like, it's a very interesting story too. It's kind of engaging. So kids won't be bored listening to like the alphabet or something. It actually has like a interesting narrative to it.
And the kids don't talk. The kids are not talking, and I'm sorry to make this example. The kids are not talking that you would listen to it in, for example, Dora the Explorer or something like that. They don't talk very preachy. They talk like normal kids.
Exactly.
Because they're actually normal kids. That's another thing. All the characters who are kids in the show are actually kids. Yeah, that was one of the preconditions that the Gen Z Media put us. Whatever you cast has to be the same age and the same sex as the character that you're portraying.
Of course. Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, thank you very much for these conversations. It was a great conversation. And yeah, I hope it's very successful, and a lot of people have it reaches a new audience, It's great.
I hope so too. We actually have a huge audience to reach, and I hope that it happens. People hopefully will get hooked into it. So
yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Yes.